In the heart of Seoul, decades before Squid Game became a global sensation, there was a man who sat on a rooftop, unsure whether to climb down or jump off. He wasn't part of a deadly game. He wasn't being watched by masked guards, but he was being crushed by debt, by betrayal, and by a country that had promised him security in exchange for loyalty. His name? We may never know. But his story mirrors the man we came to recognize as player 456, Seong Gai-hun. In 2009, workers at Sanyong Motor, a South Korean car manufacturer, went on strike. They weren't asking for bonuses or luxury perks. They were trying to save their jobs. Over 2,600 employees were being laid off. Many had worked there for years, even decades, and suddenly they were being discarded like defective parts on an assembly line. They took over the factory. For 77 days, these workers barricaded themselves inside the plant in Pyeongtaek. They slept on the cold factory floors, ate in shifts, kept watch, and refused to leave. The government didn't respond with negotiation. It responded with force. Police helicopters flew overhead, dropping tear gas canisters from the sky. Riot squads stormed in. The strike turned into a battlefield. The images were brutal. A man curled into a ball, shielding his face as batons rained down. Smoke clouds rising above factory walls. A single red banner flapping against the steel frame of a half-built car. This wasn't fiction. This was South Korea's reality. And Hwang Dong-hyuk, the creator of Squid Game, was watching. At the time, he was broke. He had to sell his laptop just to survive. He'd written the earliest draft of Squid Game years earlier, but no one wanted it. Too violent, they said. Too dark. But as he watched the Sanyong strike unfold on the news, something clicked. The fiction he had imagined wasn't so far from reality. In fact, reality was worse. The aftermath of the strike was devastating. The workers lost. Over 2,600 were laid off. Many never found jobs again. At least 30 former employees or their family members reportedly died by suicide or stress-related illness in the years that followed. Some called it corporate murder. Fast forward to 2021. Squid Game exploded on Netflix, a twisted survival drama where hundreds of financially desperate people compete in deadly children's games for a massive cash prize. At the center of it all, Jae-hun, a man drowning in debt, a man who once worked at an auto factory, a man discarded by the system. Sound familiar? Jae-hun wasn't just a character. He was a mirror, a reflection of millions who feel abandoned by capitalism, crushed under its weight. South Korea has one of the highest suicide rates among developed nations. Household debt is astronomical. The wealth gap is deep. And for many, there's no safety net, only the illusion of choice. Squid Game may not be a true story, but it is absolutely a real one. Every game, red light, green light, the tug of war, the marbles, strip players down to one truth. Your worth is determined by your ability to survive, not your humanity. That's the same message many workers at Sangjeong received. When they were useful, they were protected. When they were a liability, they were discarded. Jae-hun's past at the factory is no coincidence. Hwang Dong-hyuk intentionally included it to tie the fictional world back to reality. Jae-hun wasn't a hero in the traditional sense. He gambled, he lied, he failed as a father. But he was human, and that made him dangerous, in a world designed to dehumanize. The pink-suited guards, the geometric masks, the towering doll, all of them served one purpose: to turn people into statistics. It's easier to shoot player 456 than it is to shoot Gai-hun. It's easier to slash funding to a factory than it is to look a worker in the eyes and say, "You don't matter." By the end of the series, Jae-hun wins the game, but he's not triumphant. He's broken, haunted, wealthy, but empty, because the game wasn't just about money. It was about how far people would go to escape poverty and what they'd lose in the process. And maybe that's the point. The real inspiration behind Squid Game isn't a single protest or a violent strike. It's a system that allows those things to happen. It's the global trend of valuing profit over people, growth over well being, and silence over accountability. Jai-hun dyed his hair red at the end. Fans speculated wildly about its meaning. But maybe it wasn't symbolism. Maybe it was rage, grief, a final scream in a world that only listens when it's entertained. And so when people ask, is Squid Game based on a true story? Maybe the answer is both yes and no. No, there weren't actual death games. No, there was no underground cable betting on human lives. But yes, there was desperation. Yes, there was betrayal. Yes, there was a system that pitted the vulnerable against each other in a zero sum fight for survival.